we looked at all the evidence over the last couple days of deliberations and, of course, 5 days of meetings or so. And we decided on certain aspects to protect the water in the watershed according to our limitations under the Health Act.
I think they've already set a precedent in this province by convening these hearings, and they deserve a huge amount of credit for that.
Certain areas are concerned areas, and the more fragile areas, we've decided to put some limitations on there and to further protect those areas.
So when you say limitations, does that just mean certain practices, or does that mean that...
We addressed areas like excessive slopes and riparian areas and things like that. It's all in the order of what the conditions are. No logging in certain areas and some of the cut blocks, and particularly on the high angle areas, slope areas, stuff like that. It's anything over 60 degrees. No logging is permitted.
So the top block with all the yellow cedar, where there is old growth up there, I'm guessing there's no limitations on that area, or?
Well, under what we've done, we've made some limitations of what can be cut up there, and you'll see it under the terms.
With everything that's going on in Canada right now, with being pressured by the rest of the world to follow the Kyoto Accord, I was wondering how any of this of preserving old growth in watersheds would apply to that. The side effect would be also preserving water reserves. I was just wondering if there had been any thought on this type of decisions even falling into accord with Canada doing their role on the greenhouse gas issue.
We concentrated our efforts on the evidence that was given to us at the hearings, and regarding actually the saving of water and the protection of water in the Chapman Creek shed.
If my chief and council don't like this decision, would they have the right to come back to you and change certain areas that they feel should be protected? And if they're not agreeing on this, and if they come to you and say, we don't agree on this, we got to make more changes, we got to protect more areas, would you agree with the chief and council of the Sechelt Indian Band on these areas that should be protected?
Well, we have there, and of course the band had a spot at the table to sit and discuss this whole scenario, because they were part of the health board. Yeah. And there was nobody there. So if they have problems with our decision, bring it to our attention.
In your opinion, what needs to happen?
Well, first off, I think the agreement has the Joint Watershed Management Agreement with the Sechelt Indian Band. I think there's enormous power in that agreement. And what's needed is for these two parties to start working together in a much more deliberate way than they have in the past. I think there's enormous power, and they need to start using that power.
Well, of course, the Joint Watershed Management Agreement is not a legal document in the sense that it's an accord or a protocol between two levels of government. So it's an understanding between local governments as to how we would proceed to deal with the issues related to the watershed. The unfortunate part is that the authority that has the responsibility for determining the activities in the watershed still is the provincial and the federal governments. And when you have that clash of authorities, it's going to probably take some sort of judicial review or a Supreme Court decision to finally determine who should have authorities and who should have responsibilities.
I wonder how they're gonna move those big pieces. Like, it takes more than two guys to lift, unless you cut it in little pieces.
As you know, I'm in the opposition, so as an opposition party member, I can only suggest and cajole and urge and convince government to do things better. And if they're set on the way they're doing things, and if they've designed this whole system to work in favor of one side over the other, then I can't change that. I can just point out the flaws. But I think that the residents of the Sunshine Coast have pointed out the flaws pretty adequately. The demonstrations, the public protest is clear, and it's an informed public, and the informed public is a powerful public.
And we don't even know from which angle to look at this. There is so much trees fallen into that gully. There's that big stump. There's that big tree that's broken into like 4 pieces. It broke. There's that one there that's broken there in the gully as well. There's the one I'm standing on, probably from that big one, that at least 3 pieces with all the rot inside. That's no good.
And we're questioning here today, is any of this even usable timber? So many of these fallen trees have just splintered into pieces and smashed each other apart. We've seen 3 smashed yew trees that have come down in the process of taking these larger trees down. And is this even usable timber? Or are they simply cutting down old growth trees, smashing their debris into our water supply so as to access a few other trees that have managed to come down properly?
And I was wondering if you were going to have any consultations with environmental lawyers.
In what way?
Well, just in how to deal with this whole issue of the conservation of water reserves, the conservation of old-growth trees, especially with the greenhouse gases Kyoto Accord, and Canada getting a lot of slack right now for not doing enough in the world eyes. I'm just wondering if you see this as an avenue where Canada could possibly look good for the Olympics that are coming up.
Well, I guess we didn't get into that type of discussions of this because we had a mandate as a complaint to the health board from Western's logging in the watershed. So this was really not discussed.
Is there any intention of the board to even consider to take it to the provincial government on that level?
Well, we're going to be discussing with the provincial government next month because of the meetings, and consequently we'll look at everything along that line.
Sooner or later, government is going to resolve the conflict in our favor.